The Mediterranean world, the world from which the Bible comes, is simply a very different situation than United States culture. What we must do, like the jurors should have done, is create multiple scenarios when we read the text, when we look at people like Mary. These scenarios are important because theology is important. As the scenarios change, your theology, your critical reflection of the faith, will also change necessarily. Theology does not arrive in a vacuum-sealed packet, frozen and untouched by anything. Until we take seriously the kinds of things we have been discussing in these formation sessions, your theological understanding is probably, I hate to say this, wrong and alien to Jesus and the apostles. No matter how much we parrot official statements of the church, okay? You can parrot. I can get a parrot up here and I can train it to say the Nicene Constantinopolitan Creed. I believe in God, the Father Almighty. Does the parrot understand what it's saying? Is that meaningful to the parrot? So, if we're going to understand where we came from, we kind of have to go back a little bit. We have to check the conceptual framework and the presuppositions and the doctrinal commitments we have. Just for a moment, we're not getting rid of any, but we have to check it. And we have to see how it was and how God incarnates and inspires our biblical ancestors in the faith in a Middle Eastern, Mediterranean world. So it makes a big difference on how you think. Your perspective changes. Your way of interpreting changes. All right, let's look at Mark chapter 6, verse 35 to 44. This is the big multiplication story, right? By now it was already late, and his disciples approached him and said, Jesus' disciples, right? This is a deserted place, and it's already very late. Dismiss this crowd so that they can go to the surrounding farms and villages and buy themselves something to eat. Jesus said to them in reply, give them some food yourselves. But they said to him, are we to buy 200 days' wages worth of food and give it to them to eat? He asked them, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. And when they found out, they said 5 loaves and 2 fish. So he gave orders to have them sit down in groups on the green grass. The people took their places in rows by hundreds and by 50s. Then taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up the sky vault, he said the blessing, broke the loaves, and gave them to his disciples to set before the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them. I want you to keep an eye on, he gave orders for them to sit down in groups on the green grass. The people took their places in rows and hundreds and 50s. So keep that in mind on that first paragraph. They all ate and were satisfied. They picked up the 12 whisker baskets full of fragments and what was left of the fish. Those who ate of the loaves were 5,000 men. I want you to keep your eye on the last sentence and on the first paragraph. Okay. Notice that Jesus, what he commands them to do in verse 39. He gave orders to have them sit down in groups on the green grass. Question, class, how did they sit down? In groups. Everybody together, right? In groups like that. See how fast the American comes out to answer the question? So try to imagine how you picture this. They're all sitting down together, right? Because that's how we sit down. When we go to a theater, Americans, and we sit down to go look at The Shack or Kong or whatever we're watching this weekend, right? We go to, do we go, I can't sit there, like if I'm male, I don't come in and go, those are females sitting there. There should be a wall in between. I should sit on the male side. That space is feminine. This space is masculine. Do I do that when I go into the theater, or I just sit wherever? Do I go into the theater and go, who is of equal rank, social rank to me? Because I dare not be preposterous and sit outside of my rank, my social rank. And we don't do that, do we? What if I told you 80% of the world does? What if I told you that 80% of the world, including the part that the Bible comes from, would be scandalized to go into a movie theater like that and just sit wherever you want? So how did they sit again when they sat down?
Groups of 50s and 100s.
Did the males and females sit together? No way. The males, 12 years old and over, the post-pubescent boys and the males sat in one place. Mark doesn't tell us this. He expects you to know it. See how he's writing to different conceptual framework than yours and mine? And the women and the prepubescent boys who are spoiled to death in the Middle East, they sit together. I'm being a little general because Middle East in certain parts has changes that are obviously, but what I'm saying rhymes with what your own experience has been. So they sat in hundreds and fifties. How were the groups constructed? The culturally plausible understanding is they sat like this. Men with boys older than puberty in one group, at a considerable distance from women, girls, boys under the age of puberty in the other group. They did not sit like American families. Who ate first? Not the children? But that's how we are in our country, right? We like to give our best to our kids. And our old people, oh, they're not efficient. They don't win, win, win and do, do, do. Because performative activism is our core cultural value in this country. Do, 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 win, 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 accomplish, accomplish, do, do, do. All the way to nuclear annihilation. The best way.
The only way.
The only way, baby. 20% of the world. Not hating on America, I love America, but you know, that's how we perceive things, folks. So yeah, they don't do that there. Many would answer promptly, even spontaneously, as Americans with a mental scenario straight out of our cultural setting. They sat down as families, United States families. It happens all the time. We imagine scenarios that are perfectly conformable and comfortable to our own cultural setting as we read the Bible, an ancient Middle Eastern Mediterranean library. Mark tells us in verse 44, those who ate the loaves were 5,000 men. Let me ask you something. There's a Greek word for human being, anthropos. Why doesn't he use that word? He uses andres, the plural for aner, which is for males. He's not including women when he says 5,000 andres. He means 5,000 male adults. Greek does have another word that includes both men and women, anthropos, where we get the word anthropology from. That's the more generic term, but it's not used. Specifically, the word is for men. The Matthean version of this story explains that 5,000 men were fed, but adds the explanation not counting the women and the children. Why? Why weren't the women and the children counted? Because women and children don't count. Period. Even today in the Middle East, when a census taker comes to a home and asks a patriarch, do you have any children? And the great father may respond something like, yes, 3 sons. If he takes that answer and goes back to, leaves the house, he's got to come back. Miscount. Miscount. Got to be a miscount. Why? Because, he's got to ask, actually, how many daughters do you have? Oh, daughters? Oh, I got 10 daughters. Wow, that's a big difference in the family size, right? I want you to think about this in the origins of our church. Okay? Only the men count. Can you keep that in mind? God doesn't wait for us to get perfect, whatever that is, before he communicates his life to us. And if the church goes on for 20,000 years, then this is the infancy of the church.